Thank you, Guy, for joining us in Scouted by Gravy today. My name is Shabaz, and so I came across ZEOS innovation when we were trying to figure out which startups are there who are making packaging, who are solving this plastic problem with the industries, specifically food and beverage industry. And ZEOS was one of the name on our list. Starting right off the bat, can you tell me a little bit about what ZEOS does and how it is solving that plastic problem of the industries?
Yes, well, thank you for this opportunity, Shabazz, to talk about what we are doing and our goal. Obviously, our goal is and has been for the past 7 years is to find a solution against the problems with when it comes to single-use plastic and more the littering and all the aspect of recyclability that majority of film that we see are never being recycled, even though Europe is pushing into that direction apart incinerating those elements. There's nothing we can do. So I've been basically working in the waste management, and when I was in Panama. It was 7 years ago. I was facing the same problem that I've seen 20 years ago in Africa, in Burundi and Madagascar and other when it came to waste management. And then I could see the same like the scavengers. I mean, everything was getting to the landfill in an area where the biodiversity, because Panama has one of the highest biodiversity on Earth, with a huge amount of NGOs dedicated to turtles, to education, to the plastic pollution, to everything. But then somehow the landfill at the end was always burned by scavengers, which is often what is happening in order to collect the metal out of the plastic. So everything was quite polluted. So then I decided that we needed to tackle the problem not from downstream but upstream. And so it came actually when I went to New York in 2000. Flying back to Norway because I was originally from working from Norway. And I had a stopover in New York, and I had a organic drink with a straw. And then came directly the moment where I say, why don't we eat this straw? So actually, Bezos was the very first company talking about eating or eatable straw, and seaweed came very fast. And that's where everything started to say. But if I, the idea was like, if I do this, I will not do it like a NGO, like very small. I want to contact and to get to the biggest players, and that's how we actually managed to reach to Nestle back in 2018, 19.
Yes. I saw that you're already partner with Nestle, and I see the
Hmm.
potential of this going very big beyond Nestle as well. A lot of companies could use this kind
Yeah.
of innovation in seaweed. Okay, so how is Bezios making alternative plastics, or is it something entirely different?
No, that's a good question. Like basically, like we initially started with the idea or business idea of making straws or drinking straws, but in Europe it didn't work. I mean, no one was interested in that, and Nestle actually, if we could almost say that Nestle had the idea to turn seaweed into packaging film because they had this problem and they asked us, can you transform straws into and use your formulation that you're compounding into a film or other product that we required, and we could show that we could do, and that we could also use technology as well for making those film. But still, and I think that's very important as well. If you don't have seaweed packaging on the market at the moment, it's also because of the the bio properties are extremely and mechanical properties are extremely important, and you need to also target the perfect application. That's where it makes a lot of sense, and packaging takes a lot of time to be developed, more than what we would like.
Yeah, totally understandable. And of course, you're right. CVD is in like very early stage of research, specifically in
Mm.
packaging, and a lot of small gimmicks that needs to be sorted out before it becomes a like wide scale
That's
adoptability. So, so I was when I looked at BZO's website, I saw a very good comparison of what's available in the market and where BZO's product stands, and
mhm.
this that gave me a like very clear picture of basically what you how your product is a little bit different than whatever else is available in the market. But I'd like to hear it in your terms. So I know a lot of seaweed based packaging options are slowly popping up in the market. You mentioned about straws. There's one company that is specifically focusing on making straws that
Very
are
well.
yes, yes, Lori.
Yeah.
Lollywear, yes, yes. So
Yeah,
they are doing it in a little bit differently. And then there's another company that is using mushroom mycelium combined
mycelium. Yeah.
mycelium
Mhm.
combined with a different material, right? So from technology perspective, how is BZO's products different or stand out?
That's a good. That's another good question. Well, the fact is um, that well, apart from being like one of the very first pioneer in that domain, it doesn't always bring you the value. Actually, that's life, but that's also we understand that's business. Um, what makes a difference is how you use your technology. You're talking about Lollywear. Lollywear, you cannot buy anything at the moment. It's been like 2 years. No one really gets what they're doing. So it's also producing and bring a product that is truly like capable to be used and being a plug and play solution. We are not making our focus is not packaging. We are making pellets. We are compounding. We actually can make that our material can be used seamlessly on the conventional machine. That's we provide an element that makes clear that they will not have the converter, will not have to modify the equipment. That's what we make certain of. Addition to that, the fact that we have like multiple collaboration, not only with Nestle, but with multiple other players, and I have to keep this more confidential. But it's also because our team has a background of material science. We are like two of my co-founder. They are both so Camila Adriana, CTO and CPOs. They are both material scientists with a doctor. They're doctor in the field. They know about seaweed and they know about also processability. So that makes also something that made us very, very also pioneer is that we were capable to move from a technology what we call wet casting, which is using large quantity of water and quite expensive in many aspects and also in the speed to pass to extrusion technology where we use conventional. So Camila was the one making she's one of the top three in understanding the processability of those pellets and making those pellets, while Adriana could lower down our bio properties very close to what you have with all and even better than biomaterial that you have currently already on the market. When we talk about seaweed, you have like a nut plant with a coating. They are the only one on the market, and they are the only one that has been considered as well as non-single-use plastic in by the Netherlands. Now, and I mean, everyone has like we have different way of also angles. We are really more like in the value chain. We are upstream and they are more like downstream. So that means that we can even provide our material to our competitors in order to improve the material. I would say now comparing seaweed with seaweed is difficult because you don't see anything in the market and you can only rely on IPs, and we see that we have like stronger IPs than any of our competitors. It's also when it comes to who invest in those and it's interesting to see as well who are behind, what VC are behind those companies and what they can actually bring them to make certain that they are capable to bring this to the market. So that means that you need to work with strategic and not to dilute your company too fast. I think we have like a really a big edge on this part, which we don't share much with in general. Um, but we need to be there. I mean, all of us. That's the reality. The reality is like it's a huge market to be taken. There's a huge need for science to be there because seaweed is not taking over any kind of packaging at the moment and will not.
Yeah.
And we need to create a need, a market, and to make certain as well that the target that we have are aligned with the pricing and the volume of what the client wants as well. And I think there it requires a bit more time, but it's moving fast, and that's great. That's amazing. And seeing all those other players that we know, we're talking with most of them, it's quite it's a good thing. But I would say, and probably we don't want to be what is like happening with as well the plant-based meat, where you see more and more companies that are going down because it has been like a bubble. I think there's like a reality there. It's like science needs to get to a certain level, and the pricing needs to go much lower as well to make certain that seaweed packaging can actually compete with what we have currently in the biomaterial landfill.
Guy, thank, that was like very detailed description, and I
Yes.
totally I found it totally agreeable that you mentioned it. It's actually good to have a competition in an emerging market than not to have any competition, because then you feel like you're kind of fighting blind, which of course makes sense. And I totally agree with you that seaweed has a big potential, but it's currently nowhere near that potential. It's still starting emerging, so it makes sense to have multiple people. And let me summarize it for my own understanding as well. So what sets BZOs apart is you're not focusing on the end product, basically not supplying on like cardboard based polythene bags or things like that. You're focused more on making it easy for brands to use BZOs innovation in their own supply chain. So basically you're working on the raw materials that they can use
We were
to.
working really on the compounding. So
Yes.
compounding is what we have. Like our team are specialized to improve mechanical and bio properties, and to make certain and the processability of our material. That's where we are the best at, and it comes from polymer to to other elements of anything that we can take from the seaweed, we can make something out of it. But we are not, we will never be those one. We are working with partners and we tell them what to do and what we need, but we are not taking the whole value chain. That's what we see with multiple companies, that they believe they can replace um, like the whole value chain with a small startup. We don't believe in that.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So, will it be right if I say, let's say, if I'm a company like Coca-Cola and I want to maybe shift a part of my product line, maybe just the drinks part or maybe just the chips part, and I want to experiment with sustainable packaging. So, how easy and difficult it is for me to implement BZOS, basically BZOS materials into my own packaging?
Well, the first thing you're taking Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola is the majority is PET or PET bottles, which is the most sustainable technology that we can, if we were recycling properly with those bottles, that would be, I think that would be a game changer. But also that's marketing makes create other product, but and it's more liquid, so that means that also seaweed packaging has nothing to do with humidity. It's a home compostable material, so there are other applications that makes probably more sense. But let's say if you have a wrapping that will be not be in contact or containing like a liquid or water, then I would say like what we usually do, even though our main goal is to produce like a pellet, so that means that providing the supplier the converter with our material, we need to work with the final client, and that's what we have been doing over the past years, where we understand the needs, and that's we can really quantify, create the the pellets that they actually that will be necessary for the converters to produce, and that will have like that will match the volume, the pricing, and the sustainability, because those are the three elements. If we don't match one of those three, and the buyer properties as well, of course, but we need to have like those four. That's the problem also currently, is that the packaging is very cheap,
Hmm.
but it needs a lot of technology, new technology. So that means that it has to be more expensive than what it is currently. And we see it with biomaterial that goes from €3 or $3 to 17, depending from PLA to PHA. So there are different pricing and different sectors, but in the end, what they want, it's within 5 years, you need to be as low as like PP, PET, or petrol-based packaging, and that's quite complicated. But what we do, we work with them along the whole value chain. We work with paid pilot just to show them that things are possible. But we analyze as well application, and to make certain those application are a match for our material and for them. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time.
Okay, understood. I think this is perfect. So basically, what BZOS is doing is it's not it's not simply just there's a set product and maybe you figure it out how you can adopt it. Instead, you work with the company and you try to find out what specific need they have, and then you based on that you customize the raw material on the back end that works very well with their products, their value chain, and their machines, existing machines, and all. Have I summarized it right?
Yeah. It's all about customizing. Yes.
Okay. Okay, makes sense. And that I think that is a good unique selling point that you have. So you also mentioned the scalability part, like at what scale they need. So how are you currently tackling BZOS is tackling this problem of scalability? Like if Are you producing it in like very large quantity, the pallets? So, and are you running into some any kind of challenges on doing it on a much bigger scale? I imagine since you're already working with Nestle, you have plans to work with a lot more bigger brands. Their requirements is going to be probably, I'm guessing, in very huge quantities. So how is Bizios currently tackling that?
Okay, so yeah, the different points. So first of all, when you target a certain application, you know as well the volume are different. If you have like something that is very premium, most likely, or if it's just a one time they want to produce a new product, so it's going to be very small volume. Why, if you take like a normal brand
Mm,
for FMCG, it will of the size of Nestle or Unilever and other, it will probably be above 500 tons that you need to provide to them. So we are targeting not the bigger one because the higher volume, it's harder
mm,
for a startup as well to be willing to do it. So we go more by the tons. That's one thing, and also we have a certain capacity to produce using the machinery from our partners as well to get access to a certain volume that we can go. So the ton is not really it's not an issue for us. But again, first you need to make certain that this pearl or this pellet that you have is really going on that machine and will actually provide this perfect ingredient or perfect the matching of the material for their own product, and that takes a bit longer time. So usually the problem is not on the com- like on the processability is also an issue, and that's where as well you need to make certain that it goes at a very high speed, that it reduces the price, and also that it can not only match the converters but also the filler machine. I mean, there's so many machines that you need to test, and also the end of life, which is end of life. It's also it's like hard to beat. But other than that, we are both the ton.
Okay, so basically, Vizio's products are customizable at every level of the value chain at which your clients will use it. For example, if they want to use for a particular product, so of course the palettes are customized and they have the bio properties that your client needs, and then you also take care of how the end of life of this product will look like. For example, is it if it is home, does company wants to keep the product home compostable or do they want to do something different? Am I getting it right?
It's yeah, well, and on the client, it really depending. It will always depend on what they want as an end of life and what are they all have like internal values as well, or like there's the government or the EU that is like with the single-use plastic directive, there's different directives that are there, but also there's what are the goals of those companies. So some are going only, they want only third generation biomass, so only seaweed. Others, they want like a product that, let's say that they would say they want it to a certain extent to be recyclable, but they know very much that when it's outside Europe or United States, there's very little chance they will be recycled anyway. So for them, it's like if it ends in the nature, it will disappear, but they cannot tell. But this is one of the goal as well. And others will say like, no, it has to be only being recycled, and that means that our product most likely on the line of package on a plastic line, then obviously this will not be any other bioplastic will not fit to this level. So it really depends. All companies has different paths, but in the end, they just don't want to have. And that's what we've seen over the time. They don't want to jump into a new solution. They would prefer to keep the conventional packaging that they have, because having a bad story will impact the image much more than continuing using petrol-based packaging that I will not recycle anyway. It's taking a risk for them, and I can understand that as well. Uh, for
Difficult for companies to push companies to change their existing processes because it takes a lot of resources. And
It's
I
the
think
whole
I
value
can
chain. It's the whole value chain for them,
whole value
and
chain. Yeah, you're right. And I think that is the goal behind so much consumer pressure that is coming on these companies. For example, on Nestle itself, there's a lot of consumer pressure of them being sustainable. Same goes on Coca-Cola. And then I think keeping
and
those things in mind, that's why.
Yeah,
Yes.
and packaging is not the business. It's just not. It's the hustle. It's not the business. So they need
Yeah.
to solve a problem because no one's really tried to solve the problem truly, and they know there's a huge cost to get there. So that means that also when you work with industrial, you, I mean, if you really want to make a solution, if an industrial truly wants something on the market and really use it, we're talking about a couple of million of euros to put it on the table. If you have like and that's for any startup that are working with industries, the moment that you have like I don't know if you will get between one I mean 10,000 euros up to because you have like those different calls uh, for like so many now where they try to make a pilot with the industries that are kind of accelerators, and it goes to 100 to 200,000 euros. You cannot do you don't make it with this. This is way too little money. So that means that the budget within those corporate are way too low. But again, it's understandable because this is not packaging, it's not the problem. Enfin,
Mm.
it's a problem, but it's not the business. So
Yeah, yeah. It's not their primary
that's
business, of course. So you talked about regulations in Europe and all. So that is one of the very pushy factor for these companies to really think about how can they can improve their packaging. You has Europe has and US has different regulation about plastic, about recycling,
mhm.
about sourcing as well, carbon footprints. So how is Bezios tackling helping companies tackle or be more aligned with regulations in Europe and US? Do you have any
Yeah.
examples?
Well, actually you could use India because India is using actually the regulation of Europe. They are like it's basically the same. So, like in Europe, the single-use plastic directive is that anything that is like chemically modified, so a non-natural biopolymer, so chemically modified or fermented, so that from PLA to PHA are considered as single-use plastic. So that means that they're exactly on the same level. Now, if you have a natural biopolymer that is just by mixing and compounding, then you can have something. And we have like done some tests, and we got like some green light regarding that we were not considered as single-use plastic. Now there's this new regulation or other directives as well that comes with the end of life, which complexify a bit because it's more putting the effort on recycling than on the home compostable. We are home compostable, so that means that we don't need an industry to compost it like PLA. So it's a bit like you need to go through the path because it's not simple. No one really understand what would be in the end because they're a bit contradict each other, and there's a bit of a fear for the industry to say, "Wow, is that really in place? Will it be really forced?" Well,
Mm.
the SUPD is at the moment, and the taxation on the plastic is in Europe. It's clear, but it's always a big question. Why in the United States, to my understanding, because I'm not a specialist on what is the regulation in the United States, but to what I understood, home compostability is more and more of interest in the United States. They see more an advantage on that. I do believe home compostability is the future by the fact that if you look at one of the streams that works the best currently is the food waste because it provides values and it's but the problem with those waste, and people understand it, food is food, but the problem is like the quantity, for instance, when because you create values by your fertilizant and other, but the problem in Europe is the quantity of plastic that we find there, because when there are items that are rotten, like a cucumber, let's say, with this plastic, because in Europe we have a plastic around the cucumber,
Mm.
in the old in Scandinavia and or north of Europe, not in the south, but then the user or the end user, so us, the consumer, will actually rather throw that in the waste, the food waste, which is good because it's food, rather than in the normal bin that will be incinerated. But still, you bring then conventional plastic in there. So I think, and that's why I do believe seaweed packaging is meant for food because it has this advantage actually to end in the right bin in the first place. So,
Yeah.
but but honestly, it's very too soon now. The SUPD is from 2019. It's only 4 years, 5 years. So I really hope that Europe will take the right decision and the path. But when you look at well in the single-use plastic directive, cutting PHA doesn't really make much sense. Honestly, I mean it's good for us, but in terms of competition for the future, but in terms of science, it doesn't really or environment, it doesn't really make much sense, in my opinion.
Okay, that's a very interesting take, and I agree, and I see where you're coming from. What about like a consumer will preferably throw it in a in a dustbin bag instead of composting it, and I think even if Vizio's end product they end up in landfill, they still won't affect the environment because they are easily
Mhm.
compostable, right?
But yes, but then people, what they would say, or in the ocean it will dissolve, but what people would say is like, you bring, and they are right to a certain extent, but then it's like, what do? We stop consuming then? We should reduce consuming. That's the number one. But if you bring like a packaging that is home compostable in the nature, then you have also, when it decomposes, obviously you create something as well. And so that means that you have ammonia, you have different product that comes out as well. And that's also CO2 emission that can come and other. So yes, eventually, well, everything should be like using the stream to avoid that we release CO2 emission, but I really do prefer having a home compostable solution in the nature and disappearing than having something that that is bioplastic PLA or that's petrol based and that will never disappear. That's a huge difference. Littering is a problem when you so that's also where to see like the whole thing. But the reality is there is like Europe is one of the best area, I mean, the region in the world where we recycle the most, and we are failing highly. And I'm Belgian, and I think Belgium has been one of the really top one with the Netherlands and Germany. We are reaching what 8, 9, 10%, 12% maybe at best. We're just failing. I mean, it doesn't work. We're selling well, first was China, now it's one of I mean, it goes to Turkey, and from Turkey it goes to Malaysia or another. I mean, that's the reality. The reality is like we're not doing much better than so it's complexity of this
Yeah.
packaging.
This scenario is obviously very complex, and how companies even deal. Even now, currently, uh, like even recycling facilities have their own carbon footprints because
Yeah.
recycling is not carbon neutral on its own. So makes
No,
sense, and of course,
nothing is and nothing will be. Like, that's really one thing, and I think that's important as well. Like when I hear like even on the PLA, there was a report saying they were like neutral. I cannot understand, because whatsoever is produced from plant, from trees, from seaweed, when it decomposes, it creates CO2 emission. That's number one. When we consume, when we produce, there's no way, unless you create a car that you will never destroy in your life and that will be made of plastic. Yeah, this one will be contained, but otherwise it's logical. I hear so many startup using seaweed doing no LCA and saying that they're carbon neutral or even negative, and you're like just like seriously, you need to, like, I mean, unless you use your seaweed and you don't do anything, like you transport. So there are ways, and we have done like a lot of LCA, but doing that we can cut by 3 times what a conventional packaging can like produce, but still you are still on a positive. And that's I think that's very important as well, that people understand, and that we stop with this carbon neutral or zero or negative, because seaweed, no, no.
yeah, totally. And actually, this is something that we are about to publish as well about like what really happens in carbon offsetting programs and how companies. This is also called greenwashing. Not sure if you have heard of the term, right? So, I mean, of course,
I call it a blue washing. For me, there's a blue washing coming. I've been talking about that for the past 3 years, because I see more and more startup on whether ever it's for making burgers or for packaging or for soap, and because they use seaweed, then that's a blue washing. Yeah, we are in there as well. Yeah, that's a reality.
totally. Okay, guys. So I'd like to quickly jump to a few more things.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm really enjoying this conversation because this is like very interesting topic for me as well and our audience as well. And I hope you're also enjoying our conversation about this. Okay, so do you also see paper-based packaging as one of your competitor? Because I think currently that is the biggest hype in a lot of companies are switching to paper-based packaging.
Alors, um, I will tell you based on my knowledge and based on like, if you, there are different things, and I love this topic as well of the paper, and if you see on our website as well, we have been developing seaweed paper as well. Um, the paper is like, if you look at the statistics in terms of Europe, and the regulation, there's the Green Deal that's been 2 years ago or 2 years and a half ago. It means that it's forbidden to use um, uh, you can only use non-deforested source for paper. And the deforestation in the consumption of paper, of wood, but then majority actually now is getting more and more paper. It is 50% in Europe that couldn't be used basically. So that means that there's a gap. There's a problem now. Like it's good to come with a packaging with paper, but the paper has like no grease barrier property. There has no oxygen barrier property. It has no waterproof barrier properties. It has no elasticity. So paper will never be the direct competitors of PP. It's just like, by definition, PP is the best product that what we could have. It has everything. That's the problem. It doesn't disappear. But paper is an alternative. And I like the idea that we are thinking in different ways as well, of using a material as well that can disappear. Now, like, paper has a limit as well. The production of wood worldwide has been for the past 25 years equal. It's just the packaging that is increasing in the total, but the amount is the same. So we're not like producing more, and we know as well the problem is like the use of different wood, or like bamboo and other that are not very much. I mean, when you like biodiversity, you don't want to bet in that. So I think the time of paper is here. Well, there's also chemically modified now. There's acetate cellulose. There's other products as well that can be derived as well, and it's interesting to see. But then there again, it's in the regulation now. I think they are then this cellulose acetate will be considered, if I'm not mistaken, as a single-use plastic. But I might be mistaken there. And I'm not like I'm not a professional in this material science. So, but anywhere, like when you look at the different element, is the limitation of the wood as well. We have problem with forest and we want to use packaging for that. I feel like there's like maybe a better use of the forest in general, and there's a limitation. So, and I do believe that seaweed will take over that, will take a part of it as well. In the fiber world, it will come as well. But do you believe like well, we see with Nestle as well, they have been transforming some of I think it's like those chocolate Smarties that has been from plastic to paper, and they reduce the volume. It's interesting, but can they do that for everything? For grease barrier property, it makes sense, but maybe not for other material.
Yeah, I believe it highly depends on the market, the consumer preferences, because companies, they don't themselves try to be more sustainable. It's always some kind of pressure from consumers or government, that either it's the regulation or it's the consumer preferences that really lead the change in food and beverage, cosmetic industries. So,
Yeah. But
yeah,
there's also the greenwashing in there as well, because the majority of the paper are with a
yes, yes, it's
coating,
all.
and the coating is a petrol-based material. So if everyone goes with the paper packaging, unless it's really something specific and it's only
So
cut.
some innovations are there. I'd like to
Hmm.
share one with you. There's a CSIR research firm which
Yeah.
have made a coating, which is bio-based coating, specifically made for paper-based packaging products. So that
Okay.
coating, it basically biodegrades easily. It you can use a pH 7 pH solution or 6 pH solution to dissolve it very easily, and then paper becomes repulpable again. So you can reuse it without the coating. So they're working on these kind of things, and basically again it's in very nascent stage, similar to seaweed packaging, that companies are still trying to figure out. Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like you need for now, like all those big companies, they need a solution right now, and yeah, and they want a price that is similar to what they have now, and not for the future. But again, like when you see what has happened over the past 15 years, the packaging has tremendously increased the price. And during COVID, for instance, it was an increase up to 200 to 300%, and they they had to. So that means that there's like a possibility where people will have to, and there's a lot of different application. But the problem is also the volume. We want something not by target application, but something that can match almost everything.
almost everything. They were
And
looking for a perfect solution, which cannot exist at the moment.
it does exist. In terms of food lab, it does exist, but it's for the planet or for the sustainability. It's not a good. It's not a good one.
Yes, I
But
mean, not a single solution that caters to everything. This is
yeah,
environmental as well, supply chain as well, consumer preference as well. So there's always going to be a slight mismatch in either three of these things. Sometimes
yes,
even I think edible packaging is something that is also picking up slower pace. And I know BZOS also makes packaging. Their packaging is also, you also make edible packaging, if I'm getting it right. I saw it on your website.
like our everything is food grade, but industry don't want to hear about that. Because
Yeah,
to have something in the shelf that will be eatable, that means that you need to have another packaging on the top that will.
on
It's
the top of it.
primarily a
Yeah.
secondary packaging. So then it's like it's cool, but how do you move those things? Because there's so regulation that makes like having it edible means like it has to be also wrapped somehow.
As soon as it becomes edible, it becomes a food item. If it becomes a food item, you need to protect it from the environment. So it
Exactly.
kind of changes up again, right? Yeah. It's like saying like banana peel is also a food edible packaging because banana wrapped in their own packaging
Like I
by
like,
nature.
but like, and that's what I like like 6 years or 5 years. Oh, in total, yeah, it was 6 years ago when I was talking with Nestle, and they were very pushing on the sustainability, and I was explaining. I said like, no one is questioning the banana peel. No one is
Yeah.
questioning that our packaging is similar to that. No one is questioning paper. No one,
Yeah.
because it's in there. But in paper we can question a lot because it's recyclable, but there's a limitation. There's a lot of things as well. It's not as green as we believe it is
Yeah.
as well. But yeah, I agree that. But anytime that you bring something new, or if you want to relate to what you have already in the nature, but you wouldn't like to have banana peels everywhere. And also the banana peel, if it's like shown, let's say, in the nature at an altitude of 30 meters, close to the ocean, even from like in Belgium, I'm from Belgium,
Mm.
or in Spain, it's gonna be degrade. It will degrade within 3 months. Most likely, it will disappear. If you throw
Mm.
this in Le Mont Blanc, a white mountain at 3,000 meters, that will remain. So that's pollution. So it's
Yeah.
always like everything can be like considered as pollution, even though if it's natural. It's just the
Yeah.
quantity that you have, and is it like the environment, or is it like it's just the consumption, the way that we do things that makes everything a bit complicated.
This is a very interesting thought, guy, and thanks for sharing it with me. Uh,
Sorry, I'm going out of the packaging for that, but anyway.
Yes, yes. I like to continue, and so my next questions are more related to basically your journey and Bizio's future goals. So I'll start with Bizio's future goals. So what do you see in near future and in long term as well, the goals of Bizio, especially where do you see your company going?
The company, our objective basically is, as I said, like it's to turn, first of all, our pilot that we have, current one, to turn it in first orders. So that's always what any companies should look at, because R&D is not paying the bill in the end, and you cannot only rely on the equity or on public money, obviously. Um, that's and where we want to go is to go on the production, our own production of a pellet. So going up to I mean above like 10,000, 5 to 10,000 tons, I would say, of pellet, and that within the next 6 7 years. And that means that we can provide this material to the different sector that we're working with currently with converters. So that's our objective, is really to go massive, and then after. I mean, I cannot go too much into the details there as well, but there's
Totally.
different avenues, and we all know about that, and it goes from own production to licensing as well, and we have the right partners that we believe that wants to go in those two paths.
Understood. Uh, do you also plan to expand into cosmetic industry or electronics industry? Any other industry you want to explore?
We are not limited to food industry. We believe this is the best. I mean, the one that makes more sense in terms of logic, in terms of, I mean, with some common sense, as I explained before, with biodegradability and also problematic when it comes to food. But we are already also collaborating with other sectors that are, I mean, packaging, once you touch it, you can touch it everywhere, obviously. And you can imagine that every time we show what we do, everyone says that. But what also is important as well is like seaweed cannot be used for everything and shouldn't be used for everything. It's one of the alternatives that will come, and yeah, that's how we envision that. And but this, like, I know that different companies as well are playing on like mixing, blending as well, different seaweed with other material as well to make it like more like to just to reduce the CO2 emission somehow, or
Mm.
to the petrol based on that. I
So
I have like some I don't know if that's good or not good. I mean, I have some clue. Yes. Uh,
okay. So I have just one question regarding, like, you
yeah.
mentioned you're already expanding in cosmetic and other industries. So uh, does it make any difference, like, because cosmetic industry might require a different kind of shelf life, for example, for their packaging, or a different kind of barrier properties in case uh,
It's but
they want to make bottles, let's say.
but when it comes to biomaterial, it's only two things that is like important for all those industries. It will be OTR and WVTR, oxygen barrier and water barrier. So it's only depending on that. If you have I don't know some if you work with the cosmetic and they come with like a body that has over than 60% water, I mean, unless you blend it, it's not a good that's not a good match.
Yeah,
After,
yeah.
if you go with more like substances that are more oily or other, it will really depend on the what you have, uh, obviously.
Yes, yes.
And
So
also
in
it's
that
different,
form,
like
hmm,
you have also different type of packaging, flexible to hard packaging, so it will
hmm.
depend on that as well.
And I think BizEOS is able to customize everything depending on the need, and because you work on the very base level of these materials, it makes sense. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so Guy, like, I see that you have like huge background in, like, you have really felt this problem within your heart that you wanted to solve through sustainable packaging, and you have done this for many years now. So during your journey and while working with BZOs, was there a point where you felt that wanted to give up, or basically you felt that this is not going to work?
Or multiple times. I mean, that's normal, but it's yeah, well, you know, I went in a field where I'm not a material scientist. I knew nothing about, I mean, apart from recyclability and understanding waste management, I'm like a more engineer in what we call now artificial intelligence or in geodata. So it's completely different. So I just went in a field that is not mine. Packaging is an industry that is extremely closed. It's not an easy one
Get
to
into, yeah.
enter to get into because and also they don't want much change because it's low margin on all the aspects. So there's obviously when it's low margin, R&D is not part of the key. They just want results. But yeah, they've been there's been moment where I had like initially like a co-founder and I had to buy her out because we were not matching at all. There were other moment where you value as well. I have a family, so I had to think. But
Mm,
but I think that's also resilience, and that's what all the startups are doing. I'm not a like what I know about myself. I'm not a serial entrepreneur. I don't believe in that. That's for me. I do not
mm,
believe because for me, Bizia has been like a kid, so it's different way of.
mm.
But the kid now has to grow and move from the parents away as well at a certain point. But yeah, it's up and down. But I love what I do, so then I always find the energy.
Yeah,
But for now,
absolutely.
for the past years, has been very good. So like now, because in the first, and I can also relate with other startups that started initially, we have been three or four to really push something that did not exist at all.
Mm,
Like, and I would talk like everywhere, what they have done is great. Nutpla is great.
mm,
Even Lollyware originally, where they were, I think it's like she moved a lot of things. And Busiers, we were really, and Algopack, which I'm not certain that they are still there, but those were the five that really pushed the whole industry. And And that's also, I think, we can be proud of what we have been doing. But it has been very hard because now those startups that coming after, the door is already open. So
Makes sense. So basically, your formula has been, and I feel like again, this is very well known, but very difficult to implement. Is when you love your job, when you love your work, you don't really worry about the hassles and challenges because you carry that attitude of solving everything that comes
well,
your way.
you have when you know startup, it's all about cash burn as well. So it's how you can deal with your stress for paying your employees. That's more, and to make certain that we will continue. And so that and you know the past 2 years has been tremendously difficult when it comes to increase in equity with investors. So, but we are quite lucky. So and that's good. But I can feel for all when I talk about that, and I'm sure a lot will feel when I talk about that as well.
I'm totally understandable, and I've seen this trend with a lot of CEOs that I've talked to in Scouted by Graby as well. The most companies which are in an industry which is very niche, very difficult to get into. All of the CEOs I've seen, they carry this attitude of not giving up, really loving their work, really loving the problem they're trying to solve, and I feel like that is the kind of a formula that you can use towards like building a
This
very good
and
brand. Hmm.
this and your team and your partners. Like now, I have like we really have like a great team. I have like two business partner, and they know what they're doing as well. And we really like. I think that's to feel alone is one thing as well. But when you are like not
Together.
alone, but you sharing the stress to two other partners, that helps as well because those are sharing the same way, and then you can yeah. I think that makes a lot of difference as well. And what we do, we try to do something that we really believe in.
Hmm.
Uh, and that's where we need to remind ourselves sometimes, say, okay, why we do that? It's not for the money originally, but it will be, but not in the first place. It's not for the pain either. It's because we believe in something that we truly believe it should be there. And that means that it's not only what we have been doing, we've been educating, BZOs have been educating companies like Nestle. We have been educating them about seaweed. That's what has happened as well on how, on packaging, on multiple aspects. And I think that's for that the whole team and all those startups should be proud of themselves as well because they're doing something at least.
Totally. I think, and that's a like amazing closing message for my today's interview, Guy. Thanks for sharing so many interesting pointers about seaweed. I got to know a lot.